If someone had told me that one day my own husband would plan a trip not to save our marriage but to erase me quietly from his life, I would have laughed and said, no educated Indian man would ever do something like that. I was wrong. Because betrayal does not always come with shouting, bruises, or broken doors. Sometimes it comes wrapped in care, in soft voices, in weekend trips, in the words, trust me. My name is Aradhya Mehra. I am 36 years old, and for 12 years I believed I was married to a good man, a respected man, a successful man, a man everyone in our society admired. We lived in a beautiful home in Gurgaon, white marble floors, a well-kept garden, family gatherings filled with laughter and polite smiles. From the outside, my life looked perfect, but inside that house, I was slowly disappearing. It did not happen overnight. It never does. First, it was small things. Late nights, quiet phone calls taken on the balcony. A smile that reached his lips, but never his eyes. Then came the silence. The distance, the feeling that I was sharing a bed with a stranger who knew my habits, my weaknesses, and my trust. And then one day, my husband held my hand, looked into my eyes, and said, let's go away for a few days. Just the two of us. We need to fix us. Those words should have made me feel loved. Instead, something inside me went cold. Because by then, I had started asking myself a terrifying question. What if the man I trusted most was not drifting away from me, but preparing something far worse? What if this marriage was no longer a relationship, but a plan? What if the trip he booked was not meant to bring us closer, but meant to make sure I never came back the same woman? If you have ever ignored a warning in your heart because you were taught that a good wife must adjust, must stay silent, must trust, then stay with me, because what happened next changed my life forever. And before this story ends, ask yourself one thing. If love starts to feel like fear, is it still love? Tell me in the comments where you are watching from, and whether you believe a woman should trust her instincts even when the whole world tells her not to. I used to believe that a good marriage was built on patience and adjustment. That if a woman stayed quiet long enough, loved deeply enough, everything would eventually fall back into place. That belief is what almost destroyed me. When I married Rohit Mehra, I knew exactly the kind of man society saw him as: polite, ambitious, well-connected, the kind of husband mothers pointed at when teaching their daughters what to look for. In the early years, he lived up to that image. He called me during lunch breaks. He brought sweets home after office meetings. He listened when I spoke, or at least I believed he did. We tried for a child for years. Hospitals, treatments, silent prayers in temple corridors where the smell of incense mixed with fear. When doctors finally told us that motherhood might not be possible for me, I felt something inside me collapse. Rohit held my hand and said, as long as we have each other, that is enough. Everyone praised him for being so understanding. I praised him too, but I noticed the way his eyes lingered when our neighbors' children ran across the lawn. I noticed how quickly he looked away when relatives asked uncomfortable questions. At the time, I told myself it was pain. Now I know it was disappointment. After my parents passed away, grief wrapped itself around me like a fog. Within 1 year, I lost the two people who had loved me without conditions. Along with that loss came an inheritance I never expected. My father had quietly built a construction business over decades. There were properties, investments, accounts with balances I had never seen before. Suddenly, I was no longer just a wife. I was a woman with assets. That was when our life changed shape. We moved into a larger house in Gurgaon. White marble floors, imported furniture, a car that made heads turn in our colony. Rohit began talking differently. About money, about planning, about control. He insisted on managing finances alone. Said it was complicated. Said I would get confused. At first, I agreed. Because trusting your husband is what a good wife does. But something else changed too. He stopped coming home on time. Meetings became excuses. Excuses became habits. Dinner was eaten alone. Conversations became shorter. Silences grew longer. He smiled when guests were around. He praised me in public. But when we were alone, his warmth disappeared. Sometimes, late at night, I would lie awake, listening to his breathing, and wonder, when did I start feeling unsafe next to the man I married? If you have ever sat beside someone you love and felt completely alone, you understand what that silence does to a person. It makes you doubt yourself before you doubt them. And that is the most dangerous place a woman can be. Tell me something honestly. Have you ever ignored a small warning in your heart because you were afraid of breaking a marriage? Share your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes the signs we dismiss first are the ones that matter most. I told myself that what I was feeling was just grief. That losing my parents had made me sensitive. That I was seeing shadows where there were none. That is what women like me are taught to believe. But the truth is, intuition does not scream. It whispers. And if you ignore it long enough, it starts to hurt. The changes in Rohit became harder to explain away. He no longer shared details about his work. Earlier, he used to talk about meetings, colleagues, future plans. Now, every question I asked was met with the same answer. Work is stressful. Don't think too much. His phone never left his hand. If it rang, he stepped out. If a message arrived, he turned the screen away. One evening, I walked onto the balcony without realizing he was on a call. The moment he saw me, he froze. Then he said quickly, "I'll call you later." When I asked who it was, he replied, without looking at me, "A client. Big deal." But I had heard laughter, a woman's laughter, soft, familiar, too comfortable. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and tried to convince myself that trust meant silence. But something inside me refused to settle. A few days later, Rohit took me to a corporate dinner in Delhi. Crystal glasses, soft music, men in tailored suits, speaking in low voices. Rohit was in his element, confident, relaxed, the man everyone admired. I moved away toward the refreshment counter when I heard his voice behind me. Lower than usual, careful. "The Ahmedabad situation is almost handled," he said. "Once that is done, things will move smoothly." Another man laughed. "You are very careful. No mistakes, right?" Rohit smiled. "Everything is under control." My heart skipped a beat. Ahmedabad? He had never mentioned any work there. Not once. On the drive back home, he held my hand. His grip was firm, reassuring. But my mind was racing. Why Ahmedabad? Why secrecy? Why now? That night, I searched his face while he slept. The same face I had trusted for years. The same face that had promised me safety. And for the first time, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. What if my husband was not hiding from me, but hiding something about me? The next morning, my phone rang. It was Neha. Her voice sounded careful, like she was choosing each word. "Aru, I need to tell you something. Please stay calm." She had been on assignment in Ahmedabad, at a cafe near a private hospital. She saw Rohit there, with a woman, young, confident, standing close enough to rest her hand on his arm. They didn't look like colleagues, Neha said quietly. They looked like family. When the call ended, I sat down slowly. My legs felt weak. The pieces were coming together. Late nights, secret calls, Ahmedabad, the hospital. Still, I did not confront him. Because part of me was still afraid. Afraid of being wrong. Afraid of breaking a marriage. Afraid of what the truth might demand from me. Let me ask you something. If you saw signs like this in your own life, would you confront the truth immediately? Or would you wait, hoping things would fix themselves? Tell me honestly in the comments. Because sometimes waiting is not patience, it is surrender. I did not confront Rohit after Neha's call. Not that day, not the next. I carried the truth inside me like a fragile glass object. One wrong move, and everything would shatter. Instead, I watched him more closely. I noticed how his mood shifted depending on his phone, how a single message could soften his face, how another could make him tense. He began coming home earlier some days, unusually cheerful. On those evenings, he would sit beside me on the sofa, talk about old memories, laugh softly, as if he was reminding himself of something, or reminding me. One night, while serving dinner, I asked casually, "Are you traveling again next week?" He paused for half a second. Just half. Then smiled. No. Why? That half second told me everything. A few days later, Rohit surprised me. He came home with flowers. Not on an anniversary, not on a festival. Just like that. "I think we need time," he said gently. Time away from everything. Just us. He had already booked a weekend trip, Udaipur, a heritage hotel by the lake. The kind of place couples go to fall in love again. My heart wanted to believe him. But my body reacted differently. My chest felt tight. My hands were cold. That night, Rohit fell asleep quickly, his breathing steady, peaceful. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every instinct in me was screaming that something was wrong. Slowly, quietly, I slipped out of bed. His briefcase lay near the wardrobe, the same one he never let out of his sight, the same one he carried even on short trips. I told myself I would only look for travel documents, nothing else. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were the usual things: a laptop, office files, a leather notebook, and then I saw it. A thick folder, light blue, neatly labeled. The words on the cover made my breath stop. My name, Aradhya Mehra. For a moment, I could not move. I could not think. I could not even breathe. I opened the folder slowly. Medical forms, assessment notes, highlighted lines, signatures, words I never imagined would be written about me. Disorientation, paranoia, delusional patterns. My vision blurred, my ears rang. This was not just betrayal, this was preparation. Preparation to turn me into someone unreliable, someone unstable, someone whose words would no longer matter. I flipped another page. There were references to admission, observation, consent forms. My hands began to shake violently. I closed the folder and placed it back exactly where it was. Then I slid down onto the floor. I pressed my hand against my mouth to stop myself from crying out. Tears soaked into the carpet silently. Everything suddenly made sense. The secrecy, the hospital in Ahmedabad. The way he had been watching me, the sudden concern, the trip. This was not about saving our marriage. This was about controlling me. Or worse. That night, Rohit stirred in his sleep and murmured my name, Aru. The sound of it made my stomach turn. In the darkness, I realized something that changed me forever. The man sleeping beside me did not see me as his wife anymore. He saw me as a problem that needed to be handled. Let me ask you this. If you discovered that the person you trusted most was quietly planning your downfall, would you pretend everything was normal? Or would you start planning your escape? Tell me what you would do, because the choice I made next decided whether I lived in fear or lived at all. I did not sleep after that night. I lay beside Rohit, listening to his breathing, counting the seconds between each rise of his chest. Every sound felt louder. Every movement felt dangerous. By morning, I had made a decision. I would act normal. If he was planning something, the worst thing I could do was let him know I was aware. So I smiled. I cooked breakfast. I asked him if he wanted extra sugar in his tea. He looked at me for a long moment, as if checking, as if measuring. Then he smiled back. That smile scared me more than his silence ever had. Over the next 2 days, Rohit became unusually attentive. He called me during work. He sent messages asking if I had eaten. He even suggested we visit the temple together before the trip. To anyone watching, it would have looked like a husband trying to repair his marriage. To me, it felt like someone carefully setting the stage. The morning we left for Udaipur, Rohit insisted on driving. He checked the car twice, the luggage, the documents. As we drove out of Gurgaon, he kept glancing at the rearview mirror. Not once, not twice, again and again. I tried to sound casual. Is everything okay? He laughed softly. Just tired. Long week. But his hands on the steering wheel were tight, too tight. We drove for hours. Fields replaced buildings. Highways turned quieter. At a remote petrol pump along the highway, Rohit slowed the car. We should refuel here, he said. Go inside and get some water. I'll handle this. My heart began to pound. The petrol pump was old, paint peeling, a small shop, a few trucks parked nearby. As Rohit stepped out, a young attendant walked toward my window. His uniform was faded, his face serious. He bent as if to clean the glass and slipped something into my hand, a small folded paper. He did not look at me, he did not speak. He only shook his head slightly. I waited until Rohit moved to the back of the car. My fingers trembled as I opened the note. You are not safe. Do not go back. He is lying. The words blurred in front of my eyes. I stepped out of the car slowly and walked into the shop, pretending to look for water. My mind was screaming. Was this a mistake? Was this real? Or was I finally losing control? Just like the file said. At the back of the shop, the young attendant stood near a generator. When he saw me, he spoke quickly, quietly. I saw your husband here before, with another woman. He called her his real wife. My legs felt weak. The boy swallowed hard. This morning, he was here alone. He called someone. He said the admission papers are ready, that you won't get another chance. I felt the world tilt. From outside, I heard Rohit's voice. Sharp. Aradhya, where are you? The boy looked at me urgently. If you go back now, you won't leave again. I can take you to the police station. Everything inside me screamed to run, but my body felt frozen. So, tell me this. If a stranger risked everything to warn you, and the person you loved was calling your name, Who would you believe? In that moment, I finally understood something. Love that makes you afraid is not love. It is a warning. I looked at the boy and nodded. Help me. The moment I said those words, there was no turning back. The young attendant nodded once, sharply, as if he had been waiting for that answer. Follow me. Don't look back. My heart was beating so loudly, I was sure Rohit could hear it. Every step felt unreal, as if I was walking out of my own life. We moved through the side of the petrol pump, past old oil drums and broken crates. Behind us, I heard Rohit's footsteps. Faster now. Impatient. Aradhya, he called again. This time, his voice was not gentle. It was sharp. Commanding, the boy pushed open the door of an old pickup truck. Get in! Now. I climbed inside just as Rohit appeared around the corner. For a brief second, our eyes met. There was no concern on his face, no confusion, only anger and panic. The truck roared to life and sped away, dust rising behind us. In the side mirror, I saw Rohit standing there, frozen, watching everything slip out of his control. That was the moment I knew. If I had gone back, I might never have been allowed to leave again. The boy drove without speaking for several minutes. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. My throat felt dry. My name is Kunal, he finally said. I didn't plan to get involved, but I've seen this before. I turned to him slowly. What do you mean? He swallowed. My aunt trusted her husband too much. By the time she understood what was happening, it was too late. Those words cut deeper than anything Rohit had ever said. Kunal took me to the nearest police station. A small building, faded walls, but the safest place I had felt in days. A female officer listened as I told my story. The secret calls, the hospital, the file, the petrol pump. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. When I finished, she said quietly, You did the right thing by leaving. A report was filed, an emergency notice was issued, but she was honest with me. Right now, we need evidence. Strong evidence. That night, Kunal arranged for me to stay at his aunt's house. She welcomed me without questions, fed me, gave me a blanket. I cried for the first time since finding the file. Not quietly, not politely. I cried until my body hurt. The next morning, I called Neha. When I told her everything, she went silent. Then she said one sentence that changed everything. Aru, I know someone who investigates cases like this. That afternoon, I met a private investigator named Sameer Khanna. He listened carefully, his expression growing darker with every detail. This isn't just an affair, he said. This is planning, fraud, control. He began immediately. Phone records, travel history, financial trails. Within days, the picture became clearer. Too clear. Rohit had been using a different address in Gujarat, different documents, different accounts. And then Sameer showed me something that made my knees weak. Photographs. Rohit, the same woman Neha had seen. 2 children standing between them. They are his, Sameer said. He has another family. 10 years. 10 years of lies. The man I had built my life around had built another life beside mine. I felt sick. But beneath the pain, something else began to rise. Anger. If you were standing where I was then, knowing everything you believed was a lie, would you still protect the marriage? Or would you protect yourself? Tell me honestly in the comments, because the next choice I made was not about love anymore. It was about survival. Once the truth was out, There was no space left for doubt, only action. Samir worked quickly but carefully. He told me something I will never forget. Men like your husband don't panic when they are innocent. They panic when their control is slipping. Within days, he uncovered more than I was prepared for. Rohit had used different names in different cities, different addresses, different bank accounts. In Gujarat, he was not Rohit Mehra. He was someone else entirely. A husband, a father, a man living a parallel life for over a decade. The woman in the photographs was not a mistress. She was his legal wife. The children were not secrets. They were his sons. I remember staring at those pictures for a long time. Not crying, not shaking, just staring. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The pressure, the coldness, the file, the hospital. I was never meant to be his partner. I was meant to be his resource. Samir introduced me to a lawyer named Anjali Rao, calm, sharp, unafraid. After listening to my story, she said, "We move fast," or "He moves first." That same evening, paperwork was filed, emergency protection, freezing of joint assets, restrictions on property access. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something shift. Power. Rohit must have realized it too, because that night my phone rang. His name appeared on the screen. I stared at it for a long time before answering. "Aru," he said softly. "Where are you? You are overreacting." I said nothing. "You are confused," he continued. "People are filling your head with lies. Come home. We can fix this." For 12 years, that voice had guided my decisions. That night, it sounded empty. "I know about Gujarat," I said calmly. "I know about her and the children." Silence. Then his voice changed. Sharp, threatening. "You don't understand what you are doing." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "And I am not coming back." I ended the call. 2 days later, Rohit was arrested while trying to leave the state. Charges were filed. Fraud, bigamy, conspiracy. The news spread quickly. Family members called, some in shock, some in denial, some asking me to stay quiet for the sake of reputation. But for the first time in my life, I did not shrink. I stood in court as evidence was presented. Call records, financial transfers, forged medical documents. He did not look at me once. When the judge finally spoke, my hands were steady. 7 years in prison. As Rohit was led away, I felt no joy, no revenge, only relief. If you have ever been told to stay silent to protect a family name, ask yourself this. Who protects you when silence almost destroys your life? Tell me in the comments. Because sometimes speaking up is the only way to survive. After the trial ended, people expected me to celebrate. They thought I would feel victorious, relieved, free. But the truth is, justice does not erase pain. It only creates space to breathe again. When Rohit was sentenced, I walked out of the courtroom alone. The noise of reporters, the whispers of relatives, the looks filled with curiosity and judgment. I ignored them all because the hardest part was not proving his crimes. It was accepting that 12 years of my life had been built on a lie. I sold the house in Gurgaon, the house everyone admired, the house where I had slowly learned to doubt my own reality. I kept only what was legally mine, not out of revenge, but out of survival. I moved to a quieter city, far from familiar faces and old expectations. A place where no one knew my story. A place where my name did not carry whispers. For the first time in years, I woke up without fear. In the mornings, I sat by the window with a cup of tea, listening to the sounds of the city waking up, no phone checks, no explanations, no one watching my every move. Healing was not dramatic, it was slow, uncomfortable, silent. Some nights, memories returned without warning. His voice, his smile, the way he once said my name, but those memories no longer controlled me. I began attending a small support group for women who had survived emotional abuse and marital deception. At first, I listened. I barely spoke. Then one day, I told my story. My voice shook. My hands trembled. But when I finished, I looked up and saw understanding in their eyes. Not pity, understanding. Week by week, I returned. I learned that I was not weak for trusting. I was strong for surviving. I started helping other women navigate legal help, find safe exits, trust their instincts again. And in doing so, I found myself. Sometimes, I thought about Kunal, the stranger who had saved my life without knowing my past or my future. We stayed in touch. Simple messages. Checking in. He never asked for anything. He never crossed boundaries. He reminded me that kindness does not demand payment. One evening, as I walked along a quiet road, I realized something. I was no longer afraid of love. I was afraid of silence. The kind of silence that teaches women to endure instead of escape, to adjust instead of protect themselves. If you are listening to this story and feel a knot in your chest, if something feels familiar, please hear this. Fear is not love, control is not care, and silence is not strength. Tell me this, if you had the chance to start again, free from fear, what would you choose for yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your voice, just like mine, deserves to be heard. I often think about the woman I was before all of this happened. She believed silence was strength. She believed patience could fix anything. She believed love meant enduring pain quietly. I no longer believe that. What I learned is simple, but it came at a heavy cost. When fear enters a relationship, it is not love asking you to stay. It is your instinct asking you to leave. Today, my life is quieter, smaller, but it is honest. I wake up knowing my thoughts are my own. My choices are my own. My future belongs to me. And if you are listening to this story while questioning your own marriage, your own safety, your own reality, please remember this. You are not weak for doubting. You are not wrong for feeling uneasy. And you are not broken for wanting more than survival. So tell me, if your heart warned you, would you listen to it or would you silence it to keep others comfortable? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story matters. And sometimes, telling it is the first step to freedom. This is where my story ends, but it is also where my life truly began. I did not walk away with victory. I walked away with clarity. I learned that love should never make you feel small. Marriage should never demand your silence. And no tradition, no reputation, no fear is worth losing yourself. Today, I live with honesty, with boundaries, with peace I once thought was impossible. If this story touched something inside you, please don't ignore it. That quiet discomfort you feel is not weakness. It is awareness. So before you close this video, ask yourself one honest question. Are you staying because you are loved or because you are afraid of what will happen if you leave? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice might give someone else the courage they need. And if you believe stories like this should be heard, don't forget to follow the channel because sometimes one story is enough to save a life.